it takes the burden off that process. I find a lot of teachers feel overwhelmed teaching personal finance. They haven't had any formal education to do so. So when they shift their role to a facilitator, it gives them time to think about their finances. It gives them time to work with these student groups or individuals. And it just opens up opportunities for the kids as well as the teacher.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher. That's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach. And I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm super excited to have Vince Shorb on the show today. Vince is one of the country's leading advocates for promoting financial literacy and thought leader in teaching and scaling financial education programming. He has led the National Financial Education Council in the development of 2,500 literacy programs and development of over 80 financial literacy assets. And on top of that, he's an expert on teaching financial literacy with project-based learning, which is what we're going to get to talk about today, and how we can use teaching financial literacy to help us grow in our own financial literacy. Vince, welcome to the show.
Shaun, good to be here.
I am super excited to have you, and I would just really like to get started by just helping our listeners know a bit more about you and your background and the mission of the National Financial Educators Council.
Happy to help. And, I've always had an interest in personal finance from a young age. I got into financial services for many years, about 15 years. I really wanted to help people avoid some of the mistakes I got into early on. I was never taught about money in school, but I was always in the back of class reading personal finance books, real estate books. Now, back then, they were very outdated just with how libraries worked and so forth. But I did enjoy that quite a bit. And I really entered financial services to help people avoid what I got into. And I felt I was putting a Band-Aid on some people. My last 7 years were on the mortgage side. And people would come in, I would help them out, pay off their debt, lower their payments. They'd be looking great. I'd be excited for their future. 5-6 months later, hey, I have another 50 grand in debt. I need help. It's like, I just felt like I was even contributing in some instances to the problems they were facing. And we founded the National Financial Educators Council in 2006. When we started, we were boots on the ground doing financial education programming, financial coaching, and that was a focus. Then we started to have some bigger events, 1,000-person plus venues, celebrity sports stars, and people wanted to utilize our material. In about 2010-ish, 11-ish, we really started to switch our model because I got tired of traveling. I love traveling, but too much traveling. And so we train and certify financial educators and coaches. So they build and we help them build and scale local financial wellness programs, whether it be educators, nonprofits, faith-based, financial service professionals. We want to help people establish really beneficial programs that are outcome-based.
That is fantastic. The National Financial Educators Council puts out some great material, and I've used some of that in different things that I've done. So I was really happy to be able to connect with Vince on this because it's a great organization.
I love your background too, because it's interesting when we do educator training for districts and so forth. Our role is to teach, and what we're tasked with, you have to teach these teachers how to teach financial literacy to the students. But so many questions pop up about, hey, I need help with my finance. I have questions here. So I love your balance. I feel like teachers don't get the support often they need with their finances. So I love what you're doing on the show, and also your balance between the coaching and the education space.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. That means a lot to me. And I want to make sure we're leaning definitely more towards how we can help educators in this conversation, because that's who I'm primarily trying to help. But when we were discussing, how we could work together to really help out teachers, we decided that, project-based learning, because of the nature of how it works, we can use that to teach it, but also to learn personal finance as we're doing this. So before we get into that aspect of it, can you just kind of explain what project-based learning means for anyone who might not be familiar?
In the simplest form, it's having students solve a problem and giving them the freedom to come up with the solutions. That's used in traditional education quite a bit. The sciences use that quite a bit. But the beauty of project-based learning in personal finance, especially at the high school level and above, we can actually present them with actual challenges that they're going to face when they start making their own financial decisions. So it's a realistic based project based learning where we're presenting them with challenges. Maybe it's deciding on a college and looking at the ROI of that, moving out on your own, buying a car. There's a number of life events that are coming up in the near term. We can have them actually go through and start to create solutions for those challenges that they will face and use their creativity. And the thing I like most about this, and the big problem in financial education today, the vast majority is strictly lecture, right? And there's some room for lecture in this, but with project-based learning, we're having students go through and make decisions that they'll face. So it's getting them on those higher order thinking skill sets, Bloom's taxonomy, Webb's depth of knowledge, the creation analysis type areas. And I find this very beneficial for teachers as well, because they can actually be going through these projects. If it's something, like the moving out in your own project-based learning, if we're going through that with them, the teacher can go along through that as well and be going through those steps as well. And plus, interacting with students, that you're not having a lecture the whole time, you're able to engage and have conversations. And there's a lot of aha moments. There's also a lot of things. Oh yeah, I forgot. I need to really check my cable bill. I need to consider where my expenses are here. So it's a good reminder oftentimes for teachers, and it takes the burden off that process. I find a lot of teachers feel overwhelmed teaching personal finance. They haven't had any formal education to do so. So when they shift their role to a facilitator, it gives them time to think about their finances. It gives them time to work with these student groups or individuals. And it just opens up opportunities for the kids as well as the teacher.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have a strong philosophy in trying to come alongside the students to learn with them, right? You aren't there to teach them, you're there to learn with them, because kids can just blow your mind with the insights that they have. And especially in like this personal finance, if you're learning along with them, if you're continuing to do it with them, they might come up with something that just you haven't even thought of before, that can really help you as you're moving forward. Even if you have your personal finances, mastered, as you continue to do it with these kids, you'll be surprised what you can learn from them as you do that.
Definitely agree. And I like how you phrase that. I think it's a great learning experience for everybody involved. And there's opportunities as well with just hearing about students' various situations. That makes a lot of teachers grateful and less worried about their situation, or hopeful and encouraged by what they're seeing these students achieve.
Yeah, for sure. We kind of already talked about, how it's an effective way to teach financial literacy. How does teaching financial literacy this way really help solidify, like if you're doing an example with your students, how does that help you if your situation's slightly different? Why would, you're talking about moving out. Well, how could the moving out situation, if you've been teaching for 20 years, how would something like that still help you as you're learning your own personal finance?
That's a great example. I'll get into the specifics of that one. When we're talking about the moving out on your own, the students are figuring out their income, right? And they're researching what income can I earn right now as a high school graduate or as a sophomore or senior, whatever. What income can I earn right now? So it's getting them to research opportunities. And for the teacher, maybe it's getting them to think about, hey, are there school districts or other areas that pay better or provide more opportunities for growth? So it can get them to do their own research on that. Then it's really breaking down the expenses piece by piece. Oftentimes the rent is one of the largest expenses. So they're thinking, and while the kids are researching where I can rent a place and looking through the various Craigslist and different things of that nature to find places for rent, and deciding what's going to fit their budget and so forth. The teacher can do the same. Again, I think rent's one of the areas a lot of people overpay, so it's good to address. Then it's breaking down all of the line items that somebody would face in the real world, right? There's a lot of line items, and every time we do this, the response from the kids is always, I can't believe my parents are paying this. I can't believe there's so many things I have to pay for. What, I have to pay for water, right? I have to pay for trash pickup. They just don't consider it. And I think it gives teachers a good opportunity to go down that list. And again, most people don't update their budgets. They're not proactive in that. That's just a sign of the times. People are busy. But I think it gives teachers a good time to go through that process with students. And like you said, learning with the students. And there's going to be things you forget about. I even forget about things. It just happens, right? If you maybe forget to review your budget a month or two, and you're like, oh dang, I forgot to cancel that subscription, or hey, why am I paying this much for garbage collection? And maybe I'll make that call. Um, so going through that list with students and prioritizing the things that you want as well. So as the students are there, you're going around and you're being reminded of areas that you need to work on. But it gives you a great opportunity to leverage that for your own personal growth. And I always say, hey, address the most important and urgent things. So if you're paying 40% of your gross income toward rent, hey, we need to consider that. Hey, if you're driving around an Escalade and making 60 grand a year and your payments are $1,000 a month, let's put a star by that. Then we prioritize those. And so when the kids are going through that, we can use that as a prioritization system on things that we can tackle. And I think the key follow through there is to actually follow through and do those items. And with youth as well, I think that should be the main focus, is application. So not just saying, hey, this is a project. This is your plan for moving out on your own. This isn't anything else. This is structure and a plan. So when you move out on your own, this is going to be the living, working document. And kids get excited by that. And the beauty is, when you're teaching, how to live independently, there's a lot of strong reasons we can help kids develop. And I think those are for adult learners, that's the biggest motivator for them to learn, is development of reasons. And with kids, it's not a financial responsibility class, which no kid wants to take, but it's, hey, how to move out on your own, make your own rules, live independently, and do the things you want. And I think if you as a teacher build up your own reasons, right? And maybe it's, hey, to be able to retire a year earlier, be able to take that trip, that find those motivators for you. We know the motivators for the kids, but find those motivators for you so you're actually taking steps toward achieving those goals.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. I love the overview of how, regardless of what project you're doing, you can still go through the motion and learn a lot from it. I mean, even if you're not moving out on your own, those principles still apply in your everyday life, right? If you are doing, say, like an investing project where they're learning about investments, right? You might not be investing directly in the stock market, but you might be investing in a 403B or 457 or a different vehicle like that. And a lot of those same principles still apply. So just making sure that you are looking for the principle, not necessarily like, oh, this is only applying for an 18-year-old moving out of their house, but what principles are there that I can use, immediately. That is a huge takeaway, that you can do whatever you think is the right option by just taking the principles, not the exact situation.
Yeah, the principles, the framework, and I think just when you're in the role of the teacher, oftentimes it makes things seem easier, right? And another method we use is a case method, right? So where teachers are going through case studies with students, and when we find with students, when we can simplify things, or the case study basically simplifies things, so they're able to tell this fictitious character what steps they should take to improve their finances, and puts them in a position of being that teacher. And people always get great at giving financial advice. Well, just cut down your spending. Well, just do that. And that's another method that I really like, because the teachers get a lot of value there too. And with our adult learners, we see a lot of aha moments. We'll start off with typically, one of those case method approaches early on, because it builds confidence, but also we see a lot of aha moments. And what will happen is we'll give them just with personal finances, there's a couple handfuls of problems most people face, right? So it'll be one of those issues. and they're always great at giving advice and guidance. And then after that, we say, okay, reflect on your financial situation. Are there things similar? Is there guidance? And then you always see, oh, it's that easy. Okay, hey, I just need to either increase my spending or increase my income or decrease my spending. That's my solution. So it oftentimes simplifies things, makes people more confident. So these various tools are great for the learner and also the educator slash learner.
I love that idea of giving someone else advice, but then you're really giving yourself advice, right? And I've done this. I mean, I've given people advice and then been like, why am I not following that advice? Like, I need to follow my own advice, And a phrase that I like to remind people of is, you are not the exception, right? There's the reason why these financial rules are in place. Don't be like, well, those apply to everybody else except for me. They apply to you. Okay. The rules are there because they apply to everybody. That's why the rules. I mean, like, have an emergency fund. That's a rule for a reason. It's not like, well, I shouldn't have an emergency fund because, like, no, just have an emergency fund, right? How much you have can, fluctuate, but having an emergency fund is a hard and fast rule of being, a financially healthy individual. So just keeping in mind that if you're going to give that advice to somebody in a case study, because that's what, people should do, then you should do the same thing. And it's a much easier way of approaching that than saying, hey, you should do this. Someone wants to be told what they should do. But if they tell somebody you should do this, and then they go, oh, wait a minute, it's like a way to get around their mental defenses of being told what to do by having them tell it to somebody else and then realizing it themselves.
It's always good when they tell themselves. Yeah, great point there.
So let's take another like a case study, I guess, but not necessarily a case study, like a case study of a project-based learning activity or just something that you think is really useful. I just want to, get another idea, another example of what teachers would be able to teach and learn by using this project-based learning model in the classroom.
Yeah. I think another one, and we covered the moving out on your own and so forth, but I think another one that's very applicable for teachers and students is buying a car. And sophomores, freshmen, sophomores love this class. They're like so excited for that. And it gives them options, right? So they're investigating the various options, being able to price the car with the income that they think they're going to be utilizing in planning. The biggest issue is people go to car dealerships and they say, oh, my budget's $500. Salesperson does a good job as far as their role, sells them a car with $550 payments, right? Oh, it's only $50 more. Then they don't consider maintenance, the registration, the insurance, those other things. That's still a big issue today. You think it wouldn't be, but it's still big until people, insurance isn't going to be that much. Oh, registration's not that much. It adds up. So it's a great project-based learning activity to do, and to consider your own car expenses. Again, when we look at major expenses where people are overspending, that car expense is very high. When I drive to colleges to give presentations and things like that, I see a car lot full of very nice looking cars, not only from the employee section, but also from the student section. I drove a beater car in high school and college. I don't know how they do it, but when you look at their back end of their expenses, debt load and so forth, you see the issues. I have a neighbor that has a very nice $100,000 plus car. It was in his driveway for several months. I'm like, well, why is that there? He's like, oh, I can't afford the gas. Too expensive now. I'm like, well, maybe you can't afford the car, right? So I think that gives another great opportunity. Hey, is a purchase a new car an option? The better option for you? A used car typically is, or leasing, is that an option for you? Maybe you have a business and some outside activity where that may make sense. Hey, before you go in, what's your max payment that you can afford in your budget to keep that to a very minimum, while being able to achieve your savings goals? What are payments going to be with your credit rating, right? So we can, even though we're just teaching them how to buy a car or figure out transportation options, we're teaching them setting goals, saving money for down payment, credit plan, building credit. We're teaching them, hey, the income needed, how that impacts other expenses. So, oftentimes the theme of what we're doing, that either buying a car, moving out on your own, or whatever, it's an umbrella that makes teaching sexier, right? So, and it gives people motivation, right? It's like, if you're a teacher planning on buying a car in a few years, you're going to be super excited to go through this because now you can plan with your kids. Even if you're not planning for a few years, it gives you good time to consider, hey, is the car I have now meeting my needs financially, or is it taking me off course? So, anytime we can, and I think the key with this is actually having students go through all the steps and the teachers as well. So if you're shopping for insurance, shop for insurance. If you're looking up registration fees, go up to the DMV or whatever, if they have it online, wonderful. If not, making that call. I think that gives it a reality to that. So they have the hard numbers before they go in to make that car purchase, trade in a car or what have you. But all those reality-based things, it does a few things. It helps to combat learning loss because we're applying what we've learned. We're in that creation, higher order thinking skill sets. We're analyzing various things. Okay, hey, our credit rating 700. What does that mean as far as interest rates? So we're doing very higher order thinking skill sets. So again, we're combating learning loss, early application. And I think that's the key with personal finances. Hey, how do we get students and teachers to apply what they're learning so it's real knowledge that's not forgotten after a semester?
Yeah, and I really liked how you talked about, if you are looking for a car, you can do the car, project, right? Depending on your school, right, you might have like really rigid things you have to teach, but what if you just like, oh, this is what I'm needing help on myself. How about we do a project on it as a class, right? A lot of these personal finance not even courses, some of them are just like segments of a course, right? Like you have like a month to teach something. They aren't always super specific on what you have to do, as long as you are hitting important ideas. Like if you're talking about interest, right, you can talk about interest with a bank or with a car or with there's lots of things you can talk about with interest with. So if that's what you're supposed to talk about, maybe you want to, depending on what you're wanting to learn, you can do that project with your students. As long as it's something that excites them and teaches them those important principles, then you can do the project for the things that you need help with yourself as you are trying to improve your own personal finances.
Definitely. And yeah, we have a limited amount of things in personal finance, the basics. Now, I'm not getting into investing, insurance. That gets a little more complex, right? The basics of insurances we can cover pretty easily. Hey, you need car insurance, you need, get pricing. But the basics of personal finance, you have a couple handfuls of things to consider or work on. So, I always tell teachers, hey, get creative. If it's something that applies in your life, get creative because you can bridge in those other areas into this concept and even create, I mentioned a few project-based learning activities, but there's many different ones you can create too that may help you in your efforts. So anytime we can combine a benefit for the teacher, a benefit for students, I think it's a win because the teachers are more engaged as well in that process.
Yeah, awesome. You have a lot of resources on your organization's website that are available for people to use. What if you want to tell me if you can list any of them, just like give examples or where people can find that, so that way they can look at what types of project-based learning activities they can do. I think that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. If you, if they have any questions, financialeducatorscouncil.org. Yeah, that's a place for resources. We have a few things I think would be beneficial. We have very comprehensive standards for all ages and also standards for teachers that are delivering that. And you may think, oh, well, that's just for students, so I can design my class. But it also gives a great framework for skill sets you should have. And I just reading through the standards and the tips and strategies, it will help you understand, hey, areas that may be missing. So, from a classroom design perspective, it could be helpful, but also from a personal perspective, it can be helpful as far as, hey, what knowledge areas you should possess, if you're really looking to master certain areas of personal finance. We also have curriculum, very diverse and it's very robust curriculum. We went through our accreditation process a few years back, 3-year process. I don't know any other financial education institution that is accredited. I always put an asterisk by it, but nobody's called me out in 3 years. So I always say, hey, I haven't heard of it. There may be, but it was a very rigid process. And the biggest thing for us was incorporating a variety of learning methodologies, and that apply to teenagers and adults. We also have separate ones for younger kids. It's a different area there, just with their developmental stages. So a very robust curriculum that's available. In addition, training for teachers. So those teachers that are looking to teach personal finance, we have the leading training certified financial education instructor. It'll help you understand education methodologies, how to make it exciting, how to get these kids to actually take action on what they've learned. And our hope is to really improve the quality of financial education programming across this country. I've reviewed every state mandates, all fell well short of meeting even minimum education standards. No funding, just a list of random topics, no teacher training. Just it baffles me that it's even out there. So our goal is really to elevate those standards, and we're always looking to connect with teachers and passionate people that feel the same.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love all those resources you mentioned, especially that there's the training, because so many teachers feel like they aren't qualified to teach personal finance and that they're not able to do it. But if they can get that training, that's going to really help them to be the best that they can be on teaching personal finance. Well,
yeah, and it's always interesting, just to your point there. It's the teachers are the biggest impact on student achievement. Bottom line, I can give a high quality teacher like yourself lousy curriculum. You're going to make that class enjoyable and beneficial. For somebody I can give, an underqualified teacher the best curriculum in the world, they're not going to do it. So that teacher aspect is key. So I appreciate what you're doing and really helping teachers with their finances, because when you're distracted on your finances, it can lead to distractions in the classroom. So I appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you. So I just wanted to wrap up by asking you my last two questions, and you can answer them any way you like. But I always ask these questions to every teacher or guest that I have on. And the first one is, what is your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
I think it's just having your reasons kept at the front of your mind. Hey, why are you there? As far as your finances, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve in the classroom? And what difference will it make? Just having those. I remember, the stories of the kids coming back after. Those are my most fulfilling moments as a teacher. And say when they come back and they say, hey, you made a difference. Or one young lady at Target, she came to me and she said, oh, you taught a class a few years back, and I want to let you know I started the $100 savings plan. They matched my savings, right when I could. I forget the exact amount, but that blew me away, right? And from a personal perspective, if you keep your personal financial goals top of mind and you're developing strong reasons, it might be family, it might be friends, it might be your own personal freedom, right? Or protection or security. And then you're going to make the moves that will help you, make the decisions that align with those values and goals you set for yourself.
Awesome. That's some fantastic advice. Keeping that main goal, that main purpose front of mind in all things is huge. Okay, last question for you then. How can teachers get in contact with you if they want to, talk to you or ask questions or get additional help?
Yeah, personally, I'm at LinkedIn, Vince Shorb, SHORB. And I love talking about this with people, so reach out. I have a YouTube channel as well, National Financial Educators Council. I do all state standard reviews, education methodologies, best practices of teaching there, so if you need any guidance there as well. And of course, our website, financialeducatorscouncil.org.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vince, for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.